Good week. Positive mood from the group. A good result last week, albeit frustrating that maybe we didn't take all 3 points. But for me, that's a great place to be. That we're looking at possibly being frustrated about not winning games and not just picking up points. So, huge progress there in the first 2 games. But what we know is we've got a very different challenge this weekend. Guys are ready for it. They're in a good mood. They're in a good shape. And I suspect we're going to run into a very energetic and positive Dallas team that are keen to find their first win. So not an easy task.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Drake Hills from Tennessee.
Yeah, good afternoon, Gary. Just wanted to ask you about Dallas. Obviously, they're in a new chapter this year with Nico. And, of course, adding Paul to the group, I'm sure, is going to electrify what they're doing. What did you see early on in terms of what Paul has kind of added to the group, at least on the attacking side in those first couple of games?
Are you talking about Areola now?
Yes.
Listen, I've said it multiple times. He's one of my favourite MLS players. I think he's a complete wide player in terms of goal threat, creation, work rate, team player, and technician. I like him immensely. And, if I'd have had more money in my piggy bank, then I'd have given it to Mike and we could have maybe made a play on him. But look, he adds an experience, a quality, and I would suspect a standard in what we would normally see as a young Dallas group. I think he's a tremendous addition for them. I'm sure he not only will be successful there, but he'll be an individual that holds those guys accountable and gives them a level and an expectancy to achieve.
Thank you, Coach. Next, we'll go to Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Gary, when you look at what you guys had to deal with in your first couple games and looking at a Dallas team that probably wasn't up to the standard of either Seattle or Minnesota last year, is there a different motivational kind of tool that you have to use to remind the guys that these games are all tough and it's not just, when the resume of the team, I guess, gets a little easier, that the game might be a little easier?
Well, I think the guys have done a great job, albeit in 2 games, to try and compartmentalize each challenge. And if you look at the groups that we've played, I do think they are very different teams that we're running into here. The Seattle team, as we well know, incredibly good home form, very, very creative front line, wonderful footballing team. Minnesota, on an evening that was incredibly difficult with the conditions, there's a far more a competitive and combative element to that Minnesota team, especially at home. They've got, I think, all the qualities to not only be in the playoffs, to be very, very competitive again, strong, energetic, and also they've got talent in the team to score goals. This group is more youthful, it's energetic, they've got a front three that want to get beyond the back line. I expect that we're going to see a team that slowly but surely are starting to find their feet in this new 4-3-3 system. They are always going to be a problem with the creative players that they have. Will they always get in the early stages the connections right? Maybe not. I'm hopefully not at the weekend. But I think over time, you're going to see a really useful team here with some very positive additions to the group.
Thank you, Coach. Next, go to Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
When you look at what you guys have been able to accomplish the last couple games, what do you want to, I guess, continue adding to your group at this early stage of the season? What have you kind of seen as the areas for improvement?
Well, firstly, maybe just to finish off on the last question, there is a big emotional and physical toll on the group each weekend. So as far as progression, as far as improvement in the group, I think we've seen from week to week. Certainly, I have in the post-match analysis. Some of the possession, the understanding of the roles within the shape that we're playing currently, The connections between players have improved week on week. We created more chances last week, certainly got ourselves in much more positive and brighter positions. And I'm seeing a confidence amongst the group that I didn't necessarily see last year in the long run of away games towards the end of the season. As far as layering in, qualities and abilities as we move forward, of course, I'd love to see a better connection when we've got movements beyond their back line. We missed out on numerous opportunities where we hit the defender, the ball was sliced out of play. But when we look back at the footage, there were huge opportunities to be had. So the guys up front are doing a wonderful job. All three of them looked bright as a button last week. I think the three midfield players, as I'm classing them, have been, nothing short of spectacular in terms of their team ability and technical work. And overall, I think we can look at a group that have been tough to play against again and have been very, very decent with the ball. Can we add more goals to that? Can we add more clear-cut chances? I'd love to see that. But at this point in time, I'm not prepared to turn the screw too heavily that way and give up opportunities at the other end. So I think we're on a very good and finely balanced line at the moment that if we can continue to tread, we'll be close to adding points again this weekend.
Thank you, Coach. We'll wrap up today's session with Ben Wright and Drake Hills. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Gary, 3 games to start the season, and it's almost like 3 different climates that you're playing in. Just how much do conditions and kind of anticipating the weather go into preparations each week?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the weather down in Dallas, if I'm getting the report correctly, is going to be, too different to what we're seeing here. 55, I think, is the high when we start the game at 7:30. Wonderful time to obviously go to Dallas and Texas to play. The heat of the summer is incredibly difficult, as you well know. I think the one thing that we may well miss out on is the rain that we've had in the last 2 games. But as we work towards spring and summer, we've got to start getting used to climate changing, obviously being a bit warmer and a bit more humid. And I suspect slowly but surely we're going to see that shift anyway, Ben.
Drake Hills, you're on with Coach Gary Smith.
Yeah, Gary, I just wanted to touch on something that you've been pretty consistent with, saying forthright about obviously being very aware of how you are observing the guys going through this road trip and the way that they're dealing with the workload. I just wanted to see if there was an update on maybe some takeaways from particular players that you think have had a really good job dealing with the workload or maybe not so much. And obviously, given that Dallas is the shortest trip so far, are you, thinking about that going into Saturday?
Absolutely. Yeah. As I said to Tim, there's an emotional toll on the players as well. The travel, the emotions of particular games. Last week was particularly tough, especially with a break as well. You've got to get up for the moment. You then, crash in when you go back into the locker room. You got to get yourself up again. You're winning. You end up conceding a goal. There's so many different emotions. So I want to be very, very mindful of that. The 3 midfield players have got through a tremendous amount of work as well. Tremendous amount. So, I'll start to look very, very closely at that. Obviously, don't want to divulge too much for the weekend, but there's much more scrutiny on that area of the field in particular. And of course, with the attackers, it's always nice to see them do well. But I also want to keep the players that are on the sidelines engaged. I want to keep them enthused and confident to be around the group. And we've, of course, got 2 or 3 bodies on the line that I think could easily walk into most other MLS teams. So I want to be very, very careful and try and find the right balance between too many changes and a loss of continuity, not enough changes and maybe putting too much stress on the players that are playing and losing one or two of the bodies that are not.
We have Nashville SC goalkeeper Joe Willis. We'll start with Tim Sullivan and work our way down. Go ahead, Tim.
Joe, Gary said after the game on Saturday evening that he felt like the set piece concession was different than some of the ones that you guys had last year because it was kind of that second phase and stuff. How did you see it? Do you kind of see it as something that maybe fans shouldn't worry about as a continuation of last year's struggles, or is it something that's kind of in the same vein?
No, I mean, I'm not too worried about it. And we talked about it this morning and looked at it a little bit more. And, our setup was, for the most part, pretty good. We had guys attacking the ball. It was a little bit of a fluky play in weird conditions. So we're going to try not to think too much about that and, focus on what we can do going forward. I think we're just going to chalk that one up to a bit of bad luck. And, we're confident in where we are with our defensive set pieces right now.
Thank you, Joe. We'll go right back to Tim Sullivan.
When you look at what conditions you guys have had to deal with for the first couple of weeks, seeing that it's not supposed to rain in Dallas this weekend, is that something that you're looking forward to, especially as a keeper?
Yeah, definitely. Rain, wet conditions are always one of the worst types of games to play in for keepers. But we have a team full of grinders, so I think you've seen it in the first couple games where whatever the situation is, whether it's the 8 road games, whether it's bad weather, turf, whatever we have to deal with, there's nothing you can do to change it. So you just put your head down and work, and that's a testament to the character that we have on this team. And but yes, it is nice to see a little sunshine in the forecast.
Drake Hills, the Tennessee, and you're on with Joe Willis.
What's up, Joe? Wanted to talk to you about a couple of the guys up front that, perhaps, you should let me know if you guys have been scrimmaging much or playing a little bit of small side, just to get a chance to take a look at Teal and Ake. Obviously, Ake has been with you guys for a little while, but just wanted to know how you think they are, acclimating, especially Teal because he's newer, but even Ake because, he had just his first preseason. I'm curious to know your thoughts on them.
Yeah, I think they're both acclimating really well. We see them a lot with finishing and training, and they're both really good players, and they right now are adding a lot of depth to our team because, to be fair, we have a lot of good attacking players between, Hani, Randall, and CJ have been starting the first 2 games up top. And, as good as Ake and Teal have been, it's hard to say that any of the guys who are starting shouldn't be. So it's a lot of positive things coming out of training for sure. And, I think everyone is going to benefit from that individually, and us as a team, we're going to benefit from it when you got guys who are pushing each other, and even guys like Hani, who, had basically an MVP season last year, has guys, trying to fight for his spot, and guys who are capable of starting week in, week out. It can only benefit the team.
Ben Wright, you're on with Joe Willis.
Yeah, Joe, you guys have played Dallas a couple of times, but this is a little bit of a kind of new look for them, especially up front. What have you seen from them so far, and what kind of areas are you guys specifically trying to focus on tomorrow?
Yeah, they're going to be a young team with a lot of energy, so they'll be looking to press us a lot. And I know they like to play with 3 guys high and keep a couple guys wide, and really like to hit on the counterattack and move the ball up the field quickly. So we're going to have to be cautious of that and be aware of how many guys we're sending forward into the attack and making sure that we have things shored up in the back first. But, we have a lot of confidence in the way we've played our first 2 games. So, we look at it as just another game right now and another opportunity for 3 points.
Any more questions for Joe Willis? We'll wrap up today's session with Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Tim.
Joe, Gary mentioned just a few minutes ago that with the workload that the guys have been getting, maybe some rotation is in order. But when you look at what you've had to deal with, I guess the past 2 years even, in terms of the workload, you basically were weekend, midweek, the whole year. Is it a little bit more of a normal rhythm with the schedule that you guys have now, rather than kind of having to deal with games stacked on top of each other?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a little bit more predictable. You can kind of get into a rhythm, like you said, week in and week out. And, there were times it felt like last year when you're having Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Thursday games, you're kind of just hanging on for dear life and hoping to put 11 guys on the field and get out and get out of there. So it's definitely nice to have basically a full healthy roster and to have a little bit of time in between games, not, just physically, but also mentally. It's good to step away from a game and, be able to go back, look at it. I mean, there were times last year where we would play a game and we wouldn't watch video on it because we had to focus on the next one already. So that's been, a little different this year where you have time to analyze a game and then get a real, thorough scout on your next opponent. So I think the schedule this year is going to be huge for everyone in the league, really.
Thank you, Joe, for joining us today. And thank you, members of the media. We'll distribute this footage